Thank you. So after this wonderful well, that's a great start to the talk. Wonderful introduction. So there are multiple ways you can actually contribute to PHP. One way, which only requires money, is donating to the PHP Foundation. Ideally, your company rather than yourself. Probably one way to sell it is as an insurance. PHP about 3-4 years ago was mainly maintained by only 2 people, Nikita Popov and Dmitry Stogov, and a couple of other open source like people who were possibly paid by the company. And Nikita decided to move on to LLVM, if you do anything with compilers, because it was more interesting to him. And so that's how the PHP Foundation came about, because people realized it is quite a scary place to be for a mainstream language to be maintained by 1 or 2 people. So if your company has products, works in PHP, writes PHP, possibly consider donating to the foundation to maintain the language, because this is mainly what we are paid for. So yeah, the other thing, we use Open Collective, so the website is the PHP .foundation. You can donate on the Open Collective, which has an actual donate button here. Last time I gave this talk, there was not a very clear donate button, so maybe that's why we struggle with sponsorship from time to time. The other way you can actually contribute to PHP is documentation, as usual. Documentation always can need some love, but actually the Italian documentation is actually now again live since about 2 months, and it also could use some love, which is just requiring translation from English to Italian. If you want to do this, do come to me after the talk. I will happily tell you how it works. But what we're going to do is actually write I'm going to write a bit of C code to show you how to contribute to the language in itself. So initially, when I did this talk about 6-8 months ago, I did a custom function of array search, where you could, instead of just having a value, you could pass in also a callable to tell you how the search would work. Turns out some people have made an RFC about this to add it into the language. So it feels a bit weird to redo the implementation, but we'll do this. So the basic way to do it is in our editor. Here I just have like the Git repo, phpsrc. You can use any code editor. I am using PHP Storm here. Possibly not the most useful or practical, but it shows you how easy it actually is to do some contributions to it. So the main way is, first of all, stub files since PHP 8.0, where we have all of the functions declarations. And it just looks like a normal PHP function declaration. So let's just go and write the new functions we want to add, which we will call array search, if I know how to spell, user, which will take needle, which is what we want to search for, the haystack, which is the array that we want to look into, haystack, and a callable, which is a function that we want to search for, which will do our search for us, and it will either return an integer or a string or null. So the reason why our search returns false is because if you don't actually find anything, it returns false. I find this to be a bit confusing. And because I'm deciding to write a new function, I will just use null. Possibly for conventions, one should use false as well, but that is fine. The C code. Now, I'm a happy proponent of copy-paste. So I am just going to copy-paste a function, which is not technically here array search, and I'm just going to go, because the array search turns out is a very complicated function. I'm just going to put it here, and copy paste this, and now copy paste the name I used, put it here, put it there, and I will start reorganizing things, but I will go through various steps. So here, the then pass parameter start section is how the PHP module will actually pass a parameter. So what we initially we want an array. We then don't want the function. We then just want our, I forgot what my signature was. Yes, so this will be the needle, which is, so zparam zval just means mixed, because internally a zval is any single value that we can use. So we're just basically saying, like, give me a zval, just give me whatever the user puts into the function, and I will deal with it. I want an array, and then I want a function. So for this, we will actually go again to do some copy paste. If I can find what I want to copy paste. Yes, checking Stack Overflow would be nice. Well, I mean, you know, now with the AI and everything, I actually can't find what I want to find. This is slightly frustrating. Here, that's what I want. So PHP has various different structures that we use internally. So like I said, a zval is the main thing that we use. What needle array, and let's instantiate everything. So yeah, so I'll just go in, describe the current code. So I initially declared my variables. So I want a needle, I want an array, and then we have this complicated pair of structures, which we call internally an FCI, and either you will see FCI cache or FCC. These two structures represent userland callable, so any functions that you write in userland so that the engine can call it itself. Then pass parameter start takes two arguments, the minimum amount of arguments that your function takes, and the maximum amount of arguments that your function takes. Now our function here will take three arguments always, so I do 3, 3, and then I see that I'm like, okay, my first argument is a zval, my second argument is an array, my third argument is a function. Now, let's go and write a test, because we know TDD, write the test before writing the implementation. Tests in PHP follow a specific structure, which I call PHP tests. And I will create a new folder, which I will call search. And I will copy a test and put it into my folder. I will now remove most of it. Yeah, I possibly didn't copy the easiest test, but you know, this is fine. Everything is fine. So a PHP test minimally is 3 sections. The initial test section, which is the name for our test. The file section, which is the actual PHP code file that you want to render, or like run, and then the expectation, which is what we expected. So we can have expect here, which requires the actual literal expectation, or we can have expectf, where we can use printf modifiers to use as placeholders. There's an extra section here, which is called ini, which allows you to set like ini configurations, which are specifically needed for this test. If you do floating point stuff, you want precision ini. If you do anything with opcache tests, we have like various ini settings that we use for opcache. So yeah. So I initially want to search through a set of values. So we're going to write my test, which is going to be values equals an array of values. Let's say I have a string. I have an indexed integer, so int, which goes to, I don't know, let's say 42. I forgot the comma here. Let's say what else do we want? we could have like a floating point number, 15.6. We could also have like null, and let's put in a new std class as just an object. And let's write our comparison message that we would want to check. So let's have function compare, which will take 2 arguments. So the value that we have passed into the function, and then the value which is in the array. So which we will have like needle, and then haystack, value. And this should return a Boolean to tell us if yes or no the value is in. Now, obviously we don't know what any of these are, like the values in the array and the value we're going to search, so we're going to put mix each. And let's say that if the value is a float, this is what we want. So return, oh no, if we say if like the value we pass into the function is of same type as the output, then everything is good. So return get debug type of needle is equal to get debug type of the haystack value. Haystack value, return. And then what we're just going to do is var dump, I forgot again the name I'm going to use, array search user key of, let's say like a float, so let's say like 14.6, no, 0.6, comma, our like values, and then our function would be the compare function, which I'm using the new-ish PHP 8.2 syntax. I don't know, Derek might know since he wrote the talk yesterday. Now, to compile PHP, obviously at one point we need to compile PHP. So a couple of things first is when you clone the repo, the first command that you need to do, well, if you already have cloned it, the best advice is to do make dist clean to refresh your repo. Then what you do is build conf. Then you do a configure. So here, this is a minimal command line thing. I have these described on my website, which I will show and show a link to at the end. And then you do make, and you can use a parameter, which is an option -j. -j tells you like with how many cores you want to compile, so how many threads. My laptop has 8 threads, so I compiled it with 8 threads. And what it will do, it will then give you a file in the sappy/cli/php, and I can do the version. And you can see that I compiled this today at 8:30 in the morning to make sure everything works. So what we can then do is run our make test command. So array/search. So our command line is, well, make j8 is just to check that I have rebuilt everything properly. And then we pass in a couple of arguments to just say like, oh, I really want to test the engine. Pass in arguments. Async is the address sanitizer. -q is to make it quiet. So I don't know if you've ever tried to compile PHP and run the tests. If you do, it will tell you like, oh, there have been some test failures, if you do have test failures. So do you want to send an email? The -q suppresses this. And same as with the compilation, -j tells you with how many cores you want to parallelize your test. And then the test, you can take a pass. So here is like x standard test array search, which is where I have my test. Obviously, I tried to compile something that I didn't do. I haven't finished writing, so I apologize here. But yeah, so I will fix this. Here we want the function, and here we want the cache. Now this should ideally work and do something. No? Undeclared. again, sometimes copy pasting is a bad idea. Sometimes. Yeah. It seems it wants to. Well, while it does this, I don't need my internet. Is this right? No? Okay. So what we want, again, copy paste. We have for each. Send mash for each. So obviously what our function wants to do is to iterate through every value in the array and check that the value compares to our search thing and returns us the key. So this we have a thing, which is a macro, which is then hash for each key val, which is basically like a normal PHP for loop. So we pass in the array that we want to go through. Then we need to define integer. So our integers, which is a then long numeric index, IDX, which we can initialize to 0. Then we want our string, which is a Zend string type, which is a pointer to str IDX, which we can initialize to the null pointer. And then we have a zval, which is going to be our entry into the function. Why is this not working? Good question. This is okay. Now it's working. Brilliant. Num index undefined. Oh, I put an extra equal. Yes, we will do this. Not here. Entry set but not used. Yes, that's totally normal. I would like you to compile. So this is going to be very embarrassing if it doesn't work. Because it did, like, a couple of days ago when I tried it again. Why? Is this not? Okay. I'm just going to say my laptop is slow. This is going to be slightly weird if I can't actually do anything. So, well, what we're going to do then, the logic is we iterate through the thing, we call the function called passed by the user, we check if the value is true, the return value. If it is, we return the key. If not, we iterate to the next value, and at the end, if nothing works, well, we didn't get the result, we return null. And hopefully by then, my laptop will have decided to actually compile. So what we need to do is initialize, well, again, like I said, I'm a big fan of copy pasting. So we have the search function here that we can look up where the definition is, which is here. So because what we're doing is basically similar. So here is the code which would happen if we have the value. So I will do that here. So if the type, so I will define our ret value, return value. So if the type of the entry is true, we do that. If we have an index, a string index, we return a copy of it. If not, we return the numeric integer. And if at the end nothing worked, we return null. Okay, this is going to be annoying. why is this not working? Well, let's try something first. Okay. Okay, now it's working. Brilliant. Something worked. We got step 1 working. Okay. So obviously our test fails because we haven't, well, I needed to remove the declaration of the function. So obviously, if we look at the output, call to undefined function, totally normal. Hopefully now, if I add the function back, it would work. Please? Please? Okay. Well, I don't know. It feels like it's trying to download something, which it shouldn't need to. And I don't know if the internet here is like joking, but I have internet here. Okay. Technical difficulties. This is going to be challenging. I am going to be honest here. If I can't get this running, I don't know what we're going to be doing. I suppose what we can do is just modify the definition of array search. Well, we'll do that. Okay, we'll just do that. Oh, well, no, but I need to pass something as well. Okay, what is something that I can change? We're going to use array walk. If nothing works, we're going to use array walk to hopefully do it, but possibly let me try something. Build. Stop. -f. Maybe? It's great when your tech demo worked the first time round, but then you do it again, it doesn't. Okay, nothing wants to work now. Wait. What? Well, I shouldn't need to use Wi-Fi, that's the thing. So, everything's connected to the internet. Oh no. What? But why? Well, the main problem is that it needs to generate the file, which we use a tool for, and if that's not working, I have no idea. Well, like I said, we're just going to be using array walk, I suppose, and work with that. Again, we're improvising here. Okay, so I am just going to make myself to do use this, and go to where I was before, which was at the search bar. We're going to remove this, and go here, remove this, and has this, yep, we're going to remove this, and we're going to see if array walk here works to do something. Ideally, like in theory, it should return null, because I'm not doing anything. Well, I'm really not doing anything. No, wrong command. Please. Okay. Cool. What is the output? Cannot be passed by reference. Okay, so I need to find a new function. Okay. Find something which has a callable. See, this is slightly not what I expected. Okay, we'll use array reduce, apparently. Again, like, we're improvising here. We are improvising here. So we got, let's go to array reduce. And we will use this. Well, donate more money for a better internet connection here, apparently. Good venue here. It is a nice venue here. I'm sorry. That might actually be useful, if that could help it. But we'll see. Okay, redefining. I was thinking I'm going to be like, run this pretty fine and not take too much time, but apparently no. Okay. Okay, what is the definition of array reduce? Okay, array callable mixed. Okay. Array callable, and we'll put the needle at the end here. Let's go. Okay. Okay, good. We got some progress. So I just need to change how I'm doing it. So the last value is, the value we're going to search is this, and 1%? Oh yes, indeed. It is indeed. Yep. No! Brilliant! We got here! So this is apparently my job now, is you see me struggling with our own tools. Well, okay, now that we got here, we should be able to get back on track, hopefully, because now nothing worked, but nope. Okay, I am just going to use something. Okay, so if we have to go back here, we are going to set up this. So this is being way more stressful now. I apologize. This is going to be a bit of a nightmare, I feel. But oh well. Obviously, PHP Storm doesn't really like C code, so it doesn't really understand it. But okay, let's go. So we have a function which is called ZenCall function, which takes our FCI structure and our FCC structure, and will actually execute the function. Now, before we can do this, we actually need to pass in some parameters to our function, obviously, which takes 2 parameters. So this is an array, and we will thus take our entry here, and I forgot how to write. Now I'm so stressed, I forgot how to write code, which is brilliant, and our needle. Check that this actually compiles. Probably not. Yes, it doesn't. Okay, we'll just do something else. We will just do it manually. Okay. Params of 0 is a needle, and our so our second parameter is the entry. I don't even know. What signature did I use for the needle first, haystack value? Yes, good. That's how it works. Param set but not used, incompatible types. Okay. Yes. So what I want to do is, so the FCI structure, what it has, it encompasses the return value that we want, the number of arguments that we pass to the userland callable, and the actual parameters. So they are in the aptly named FCI retval for the return value, FCI dot params for the parameters, and we have, it is FCI param count equals 2. Okay. Right. I apologize. This should have been way different. Now my whole game is thrown off, but we will work with it. Okay, no, right. Okay, so 0 param. What we want to do is actually copy the argument, so the needle, and we will do the same thing for the entry at number 1, return value, params. It's now compiling. The test is failing. Let's see what is out. We get int 1. See, I don't actually know. Yeah, well, this should be the first integer, right? So, I mean, we'll just double check. We'll just actually do. So, obviously, so the return value that we're expecting is the integer key. So, which is correct. And if we decide to have it a float, it should give us the string float. It works! Yes! Brilliant! Okay. Whew. Well, I don't know how much you followed me at all here, considering I was just trying to get it working myself. So I'll now work through the, explain through the code what is happening. So obviously, like I said, we are iterating through every entry. So we take the array as the first entry, as the first argument. We then pass it where it should plug in the value if it's the like an integer number index, where should be the string index, and what the actual value is held in the array. We then set up our return value, where we will get the return value from the function that we call in userland. We set up we set up the parameters. We copy the parameters into our array. We set all of the values necessary in our FCI structure, so the function call structure. We then call the function, and then we check if the return value is true. So internally, PHP actually doesn't store a Boolean. True and false are actually dedicated types internally, so that's why we can do this. If you would check for an integer, you would actually need to access the underlying value and check the value. And if it is true, so if it is correct, well, we get our string index. And we have a string index, then we return a string index. And otherwise, if it's an integer, so we return the integer. Now, there are a couple of issues with this code. So I will try and demonstrate it, which is what happens if our function, that the userland function misbehaves? Let's say it just returns a new class, like new std class, which is not at all what we expect. So if we run it, and we look at our test output, we get a wonderful error from our compiler telling us oh, you are leaking memory. Turns out leaking memory is not a good idea. I mean, except if you have infinite resources. If you do, please let me know. So what we actually need to do is, after we called our function and after we've dealt with our return value, is to actually destroy it, or zero pointer destroy, and then we're going to like destroy our reference to our return value by taking the address for the pointer. And if we do this, and we run it, and it compiles, it goes back, our leak memory is still here. Brilliant. Today is not going well. Today is not going well. What? Okay, we initialize the object, yes. Why is it not? I am being very confused here. I am being very confused here. Oh, wait. What? Well, it should be. I mean, okay, the proper technique would be to use GDB, but again, like I said, we will just do something which is called a printf to see like, hello, question mark? Like, you know, this is the experience. This is actually how I work when the first time, like, actually, like, so I actually learned C code by doing PHP source. Turns out this is a terrible idea. Well, we are hitting the hello question mark, so apparently we are getting here. Oh well, I am getting. Maybe we need. Okay, like let's do something else. If the type is true, and we will copy this again, and is different to is false, we shall destroy the value. Normally you should just destroy it all the time, and we will continue to the next iteration of the loop. And let's remove this, and hopefully if curly brackets? Oh. Well, yeah, this is what happens. Red file undeclared. What? Okay. If not, I will get. It's still leaking. But this is a good question. Good question for why. Well, I have no idea how to go here. How much time do we have? Still? Roughly? 5 minutes? Okay. Well, let's imagine in a perfect world, if nothing went wrong, this should work. The thing is, worst case, I actually have the code on GitHub where it worked if there's a good internet connection on my GitHub. So you can check it and run it on yourself. This is a very different conference than it went, so I apologize. Resources to actually learn how the engine works. Rule number 1 is if you have questions and you want to find where PHP core developers are, a lot of us hang out in the PHP room on Stack Overflow, which is called Room 11. So it's like chat.stackoverflow.com/rooms/11/php. A lot of us are here, and you can ask questions. If you want resources, the PHP internals book is a very good resource, which is maintained by various contributors from at various periods. Although we are trying to write a new book, which is now with the repo, so we're splitting even more content. I have on my own website, so gpp.moe, I have a blog entry, which is my own dump, literally, of where I write commands and how to do stuff and how to set up, where there are various links, and where there's like an initial configuration to like configure to get a minimal build to run. The other extremely useful tool, is called heap.space. The PHP code base is 29 years old. you can imagine how a 29-year-old code base written in C looks like. It is very complicated and convoluted. This website allows you to do searches across the whole code base and allows you to navigate the code base. Now, clearly we don't have good internet, so I'm not going to try and do a search, because otherwise it would not work. But, well, I might try. We have a macro, which is about like something empty switch declares. Well, clearly it's requiring me through like a key to encrypt, so I'm not going to try it. Well, that went very differently. I suppose any questions? I'm sorry. This happens sometimes with live coding, I suppose, but I hope I kind of taught you how to write a PHP test in some way to expect, well, here we could have like the expectation if I fix everything. If you find a bug in PHP, and if you want to report, if you report it on the issue tracker, if you already write a test, this is extremely useful for us to like run it. Or if you just want to like add code coverage. So we use CodeCov to check code coverage. So if you want to improve code coverage, you can use this. Again, I apparently cannot show you the website. We would very like appreciation for like adding test coverage. Some of our extensions have 8% code coverage, which is not great. So if anybody uses the Postgres extension, feel free to write tests, because it needs it. Well, yeah, I suppose. It went very differently than I expected, but I hope you at least learned something. And if any questions, feel free to ask.
But first, a warm round of applause for Gina. You know what they say with arrays, shift happens.
Yes, yes, it does indeed.
Okay, any questions? One question. Okay, one question here.
Hello, thank you for the great talk.
Thank you.
Inside basic function stop.php,
yes.
Some of the method stubs, function stubs have a PHP doc block with
yes.
something like compile time eval.
Yes.
Is that only for documentation, or does that have an effect on the compilation?
No, so the PHP docs, so we have a certain extra PHP docs. So for example, some of them are for the optimizer. So for example, we will have, say, returns an array of integers, because we can actually add this information to the optimizer. Internally, we can say like, oh, this is an array of integers, this is an array of strings. And comp time eval is one of these extended doc book things that, like, if your function is a pure function and always returns the same thing, if it can evaluate it at compile time, the optimizer will try to run it and do the results. So yeah. Any other questions?
Here we have he's first.
Thank you for the talk. It's really bold to do it. And, congrats. I mean, you went through it. Wow.
Last time I did it, it worked perfectly. I maybe got a bit too cocky, but okay.
Works on my machine.
Yeah. If anybody understands French, you can watch the video of the AFUB forum PHP from last year, where it worked perfectly. So
no swearing involved in French. Anyway, the question that I have is like, how long did it take for you to get fluent in that? I don't think it's that you are bored on the couch and say, let me compile PHP just because.
I think it's just that like I got interested, so I started contributing. So how I got into contributing to PHP is I initially started with the French translation of the documentation, and I found like a lot of weird stuff because it was out of date. So I was just like, really, PHP does this? So I was like, okay, how can I propose language changes? So then I kind of did try to just tinker. Now, to be fair, I was at university, so I had time. But I did actually really just kind of just try stuff. I read a bit like on the internet, like how C pointers kind of work, and just I actually did look around like how other code does, and I did copy and paste like I did today, just trying different things and look at it and like see if it runs. And if it did, I did like a pull request, and some people, like other people told me, it's like, okay, here you're missing this and this other case, and then you start learning. And I think the important fact is, I mean, like Michelle said yesterday, is the community. So the internals community is smaller, but Room 11 helped me a lot in that, like, when somebody initially like saw that I was trying to like do stuff and told me, I was like, oh, hey, you should come here, and like, because if you have questions, you can just ask them. And a lot of people were very helpful to like, I had questions of like, how can I do this, and like trying to answer me. And I try to do the same now when people come into the chat. But it was just like a lot of, I don't know, just throwing stuff at a wall and see what sticks. But yeah.
Good, thanks. So maybe starting with the title translation can be the first step.
Yes, I'm happy to help anybody to get up to speed with it. So.
Good. Thanks so much.
I think.
Yep.
A question from home? Okay.
So there are several really obscure macros that sometimes you must use for retro compatibility reasons. How can I figure out when, where, why should I use them? Postscriptum, what are you currently working on?
So macros, yeah, PHP, the PHP code base loves macros, like loves them. An unhealthy diet. A lot of the weird thing is a lot of the macros are actually meant to like abstract stuff away to be like, oh, we can change the underlying implementation if we want to. I don't know if that has ever happened. So you don't really need to use them, but like a lot of them exist as convenience in some way. But if you write and you know C code and just want to write it directly, you could. What I'm working on currently, semantics. So I have a whole rant I can do about how offsets and containers, like arrays and string offsets and like array access works and is slightly broken and weird in subtle ways, and I'm trying to like make an RFC to fix this for the next version. So that's what I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months, roughly. So yeah, I don't know.
No other question from home? Others? We have a question way the other side of the room.
Always make the person with the microphone run. That's the one rule.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you for the talk. I have a question, probably maybe a stupid question or a generic question on the array, course, like array filter or array map.
Yes.
We have all the need and the high stack mixed. Is there any reason for that? I think everyone in this room think about this.
So as far as I know,
maybe once in
so as far as I know, is the string functions like the string functions are consistent within themselves, and the array functions are consistent within themselves. They're just not consistent between each other. And I think it's just like initially when people wrote them, there were 2 different people that just wrote it in 2 different ways, and the RFC process is actually only like 14 years old, 15 years old. So a lot of stuff before was just like, I need this, let me just add it to the language. And now, 20 years later, we need to support it. So there's no real reason for it.
One more question
One more
from
question.
home.
Of course, on the other side.
So, rewriting Rust when? And, no, wait. Seriously, with the White House pushing on safety of languages, wouldn't it make sense?
I think the main difficulty is extensions. So a lot of actual, like for example, even the standard here, like what I added in this, what I was trying to edit, is actually not part of the core language. It's just an extension. The standard extension is just bundled together. And a lot of features are just extensions, like the curl extension, any peckerel extensions, which is the most of the ecosystem. So if a rewrite in Rust would require a way to still be compatible with all of the C extensions, because I think somebody is rewriting PHP in Rust, like there was one project, or like there are 2, like I know that somebody is doing it, but the main issue is always like, okay, how can you get all of the extensions? Because otherwise it requires, well, you need to write all of the extensions again in Rust, which is effort, or you need to introduce bindings, and that remove some of the safety like net benefits of it. I think the other thing is that like I have never actually done any Rust. Not that I don't want to, mainly because I think if I start, I won't be able to go back to writing C code. So I'm postponing it. But yeah, that's I think the main reason as to why we don't do it.
Okay, thank you. A big round of applause for Gina. Thank you, Gina Banyard.